Wonder Man was recently canceled, and I know what you're thinking. Amanda, isn't this old news? But when I was looking into this, I dug deeper, and Wonder Man is just the tip of the iceberg, baby. Welcome back, everyone. We are here today to talk about Wonder Man, its recent cancellation, and some other Marvel projects that have been canceled. And the findings of this, as I gathered more and more information on just everything that has been happening in recent years, was pretty surprising. So we're going to talk about what this means, what it means for the future of Marvel, and maybe what it says about what kind of stories we want to prioritize. But before we get into that, I would love to know from you, what is a Marvel project or story that you would love to see happen? Because there are just so many that haven't been realized, and I would love to hear what you want to see in your stories. Let's start off by talking about Wonder Man, because clearly that's what we're all here for. If you don't know this about me, Wonder Man is one of my favorite shows this year. I absolutely adore this show. Actually, it is my favorite show this year, and I've watched a lot of great television. It's been a good year for TV. So when it comes to Wonder Man Season 2, I was about as surprised as everybody else on the internet when I heard that it was canceled. And where we were at this stage was that everybody was signed on, the schedules were all cleared, and the writing room was about to fire up. So they were going to get started on writing out the episodes, and then early next year, they were going to be starting the filming process. But the show was surprisingly canceled. And when I say surprisingly, I really do mean that, because co-creator Andrew Guest even took to TikTok to talk a little bit about what was going on. And he was about as surprised as the rest of us. He said that he doesn't know about viewership or any of those things because he's not actually told about the numbers. He wasn't even told the reason that this show was canceled, and it's his show. I think that's absolutely insane. When he talked about it on TikTok, he highlighted the importance of using our voices to talk about the kind of stories that we want to see, and responded to the fact that fans were understandably upset and said, keep talking about it, because the more we speak out about these things, the more that we can manifest that kind of shift in the types of stories we want to see happen. Wonder Man was a critically acclaimed series. It came out, it had absolutely crazy reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. Like, this is one of the most critically acclaimed things that Marvel has ever made. Yahya Abdul-Mateen II was nominated for an Emmy for his performance, nominated in the category of Best Actor in a Comedy Series, and he's going up against some heavy hitters in this category, even though personally I'm rooting for him, and there's a lot of great people in the category with him, so no shade to them, just Wonder Man was that good. But even though we got an Emmy nomination for Wonder Man and we got all these amazing reviews, critically acclaimed, everyone that I think watched this show, or most people that watched this show, really loved it, the show was still canceled. It was probably canceled, according to reports, due to low viewership. Now, this is interesting to me because when we talk about low viewership in streaming, usually we're talking about watch time numbers. So we're talking about how many hours are people watching the show for, and how does that compare to other shows that are on at the same time, or that were on at a different time and maybe are within the Marvel Disney Plus wheelhouse. And while I do understand that looking at the Wonder Man numbers, they do fall short, I think, of what Marvel and Disney were expecting or hoping the show would do, there are some other factors that we need to consider here, like Daredevil Born Again, Season 2, that came out recently, and those numbers were also pretty lacking in terms of what Marvel and Disney's expectations were for that show. They definitely dropped off from Season 1, and yet Born Again is getting a Season 3. Now, granted, Wonder Man Season 1 is a complete package, and when the show was done and there was talk of, will we get a Season 2, I was actually one of the hesitant people to say, well, here's the thing with Wonder Man. It was such a complete story in Season 1, I don't really know where we go with it next. But we have two actors here who also said they would not be coming back unless there was a story that was worth telling. And so when I heard that everyone was signed on and was going to come back for it, that gave me some faith in the continuation of this story, because they wouldn't be coming back unless what they were being told was going to happen was good and convinced them. So while yes, Wonder Man Season 1 was a complete package and Born Again Season 2, You know, we're kind of halfway through the story, so narratively, we actually need the season 3 to get to an actual ending. I still think it's odd because these are both shows that underperformed, and yet one of them gets renewed and one of them does not. And the other strange thing is that when Wonder Man was renewed, likely Disney would have known what the viewer numbers are, right? They know what their numbers are, and yet they did choose to renew it, and then 3 months later abruptly decided to cancel it. So while a lot of people are pointing to those viewership numbers, I'm a little less convinced on that front. And that's not all that I discovered. When I was looking into this, I also was thinking back to some other stuff that was recently canceled. Like, for example, McKnight Angels. You might remember this project. It was something that a lot of us were talking about after Wakanda Forever. It was going to be centered around Okoye and the former Dora Milaje that were now going off to do their own thing, inspired by a comic. And McKnight Angels is what that was going to be. That was what the project was going to be. I remember people were talking about the idea of this happening. It was in talks. It was in the works. And it would have been part of a deal that Disney had with Ryan Coogler's production company, Proximity Media. Proximity Media actually made a 5-year deal with Disney to work on projects with them, specifically creating shows for Disney+. Tons of Black Panther shows were rumored during this time and were said to be in development. Among those shows, including McKnight Angels, we also have a show that was maybe going to be centered around the Jabari tribe and M'Baku. There was going to be a show that could have gone into Killmonger's military past. That would have been super fascinating. And then, of course, there was also talk about an animated series, which the working production title for was The Golden City, and we would later learn that this was the anthology series Eyes of Wakanda, which did end up happening and which we did see. And I thought it was all right. It wasn't my favorite thing, but there were things that I enjoyed about that show. Now, this contract ended in 2026 with Proximity Media. So that means that all of these shows that we've been talking about, including McKnight Angels, not happening, clearly. Or if they are, they'll be happening with someone totally different. But the whole reason that I feel that they partnered with Ryan Coogler on this, with Proximity Media, is because they wanted his creative input into the universe of Black Panther that they were building out in the MCU, which in the comics has so much rich lore and history, and there's so many amazing characters and stories, just even within that pocket of the Marvel Universe. So during that time that they were partnered with Proximity Media, what did we end up getting from Disney? Well, we got Hurricane Katrina, A Race Against Time, Ironheart, and of course, Eyes of Wakanda. And that's it. And I gotta say, while I enjoyed Ironheart and I enjoyed Eyes of Wakanda, I'm a little bit disappointed to hear that because there were so many other projects that were also super exciting that just never saw the light of day and didn't end up getting fully developed for some reason. To me, this feels like Disney not really fully utilizing Proximity Media and perhaps even restricting some of the capabilities there when it comes to the self-expression that we could have seen, that full range of self-expression that we're so used to seeing from artists like Ryan Coogler. Ryan Coogler is an amazing director, an amazing creative mind. I mean, we all saw Sinners. We've seen the potential of what this man is capable of, and yet this is the projects that we ended up getting for Proximity Media and Disney, and that to me feels a little odd. And I also have to say, the contract is done. It ended in 2026. And if you're wondering what's happening now, Proximity Media actually moved over to Netflix. So Netflix now has that exclusivity deal with them, and they're going to be working with them on shows. So they did not renew with Disney. Now, whether that's because the money wasn't right or whether that's because Disney didn't want to continue the partnership, I'm not exactly sure. But I do think that it's fitting that Proximity Media and Ryan Coogler decided to go with Netflix and not necessarily with Disney for whatever reason. That speaks volumes to me. There's another show too that I was thinking about that never ended up happening that I was actually really excited to see. And this show is Armor Wars. Armor Wars, if you're not familiar with it, is an insanely important story in the Iron Man mythos and in the world. In the comics, Armor Wars is all about Tony Stark going out on this mission to try to reclaim tech that other people have stolen. So people have taken his tech and he's going around trying to then destroy that tech to prevent other people from using it outside of his own means and what he thinks it should be used for. Now, granted, at the point in time where we're at in the MCU, Tony Stark would not be available. So Armor Wars was believed to be a show that was going to be about James Rhodey, going around and doing this instead. So I thought the idea of having Rhodey in that position, in Stark's position, would have been really cool and really interesting. And initially it was going to be a show, and then they were talking about it being a movie. And unfortunately, I think this one didn't happen because of the failure of Secret Invasion, which is definitely a show that I watched and I wish that I didn't. And also because of the failings of Brave New World, which I thought was fine, but I do agree was kind of lackluster and definitely did not perform as well as I think Disney and Marvel were hoping it would. And I do think that it would have been hard, obviously, to do Armor Wars moving forward because Rhodey was revealed to be a Skrull in Secret Invasion, so if you didn't watch that show, and honestly, don't watch that show, that would have been maybe confusing for new viewers who are coming in who didn't see Secret Invasion. However, I did think that that was a cool premise for starting off Armor Wars. Like, so Rhodey's been a Skrull this whole time, so what has the real Rhodey been up to? Where has he been? What is he doing? Enter Armor Wars. I thought that could have been interesting. And there was even talk that we were going to see Riri in Armor Wars with Rhodey, and it was going to be about the idea of carrying on that Iron Man legacy for both of these characters. And I think Riri is such a cool character. I actually really like Ironheart in the comics, and I even like some of the stuff we did with her in the MCU, so I would have been interested to see where this would have gone. And there's another project too that I think, as a fan and with so many fans involved in it, that I am extremely disappointed has not happened. I actually can't believe this project never happened, considering how long it's been in development, only for us to now find out it's canned. And that, of course, is Blade. Blade was such a terrible experience, I think, for Mahershala Ali, that he doesn't even want to talk about it. He recently did an interview with GQ, and when he was asked about Blade, he actually said he wanted to move on and he didn't really want to talk about it anymore. He put the onus on Marvel, saying that if they had wanted it to happen, it would have happened. AKA, Ali was not the person who was trying to block Blade from happening. He really wanted that project to be made. And yet here we are, and it's not going to be. He said in regards to a lack of major roles after his 2019 Oscar win, something that I thought was very interesting. He said, "Some of how quiet I've been is not really of my own choosing." And to me, that feels like Marvel was also keeping him under lock and key during his time where he was tied to the project. Like he was contractually obligated to avoid certain other projects that might overshadow what they were building with Blade, and they just kept him on hold for like 7 years, which is pretty brutal. That's got to be so upsetting, both as an actor who really loves Blade and who was excited about the project, but also just as an actor in general, because it's limiting what he can do. Now, granted, he is going to have a lot more projects up and coming, and I'm very excited to see what he does next, but man, do I feel for him. And that's not the only actor that maybe is disappointed right now. We also have Teyonah Parris. Teyonah Parris is apparently not signed on to be in Doomsday, which I think is kind of wild when you consider that the Marvel's post-credits implied that she would be pretty important, especially in regards to what's going to be going on with the Fox X-Men in Doomsday. But I don't know, maybe they're just going to be cannon fodder now, so we're just getting rid of all of that. In fact, the Marvels is not even listed on the what to watch before Doomsday playlist on Disney+, which I actually think is really disrespectful to all of the characters that were in it. And sure, The Marvels was a messy movie. I'm not going to deny that. However, where we left Monica in that film, I really felt that she was going to be important. And I was excited because Monica Rambeau in the comics is often a character that gets sidelined. And to see her appear in WandaVision and to see what Teyonah Parris did with her, I thought it was a really great showcase of Monica's potential. And then, of course, they said, Monica's going to be returning in the Marvels. And I got excited because I thought there was a lot for us to explore between Monica and Carol. And unfortunately, that didn't go as deep as I was hoping it was going to. And we kind of underutilized, I think, Monica Rambeau a bit in that movie. So when they gave us that ending, I thought, okay, well, at least now she's going to be important, right? She's over with the Fox X-Men. Apparently not. Apparently she's maybe not even going to be in Doomsday. Now, granted, when it comes to things being canceled, as I read more and more into this and into the history of all of these projects, I will not deny that while I'm just here reporting, my eyebrows raised more and more to the point that if we get a couple more stories like this, and I'm sure some of you will have some other things you want to talk about in the comments, my eyebrows may leave my face. That's how high up they are at this point. I just can't believe it. The amount of disrespect to so many great creatives is deeply concerning to me. And I know that this isn't anything new because, of course, we had projects like New Warriors that never came to fruition. New Warriors didn't end up happening. It also got canceled. They made a pilot. They tried to ship it around. And I think that would have been a really cool show too, inspired by New Warriors and kind of some Great Lakes Avengers stuff as well. And yet that didn't end up happening. And of course it was because no one picked it up. It was shopped around. That's a business decision. They couldn't proceed if no one wanted to option the show. However, I just think about all of these things, and technically, they can all be just simplified to, it's a business decision. We didn't have the viewership numbers. We didn't make the money. It's all about the money. Money, 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 money. And that's no surprise to me. I know that the film and television business is a business, so we need to make that money in order to make more art. But I do wonder what that says about what our real focus is for Marvel and Disney right now, because there is so much good art that has been made that we have just kind of swept under the rug. And I mean, even when I think back to the marketing for shows like Ironheart or Eyes of Wakanda or Wonder Man, where was the marketing for these shows? In a lot of ways, it feels like Marvel is setting up shows to fail. In a lot of ways, it feels like Marvel and Disney are setting up these shows to fail so that then they don't have to continue them. And when things are a critical success, they claim it as though it is some sort of badge of honor for them, but they don't actually want to honor any of the creatives that built that for them. And that to me is so sad. And I just would really love to see stories that speak to us all. I mean, think of a show like Armor Wars, where we'd be examining technology in the wrong hands of people who are using it for morally questionable means in a time period like this. I feel like that would have been really relevant and could have said something really important. And yet here we are, and we'll never see it. So yeah, that's kind of all I wanted to say about this. I just kind of went on a little bit of a deep dive and I found it really disappointing. I'm like beyond annoyed by all of these things, but I'd love to hear some of the stuff that you are feeling about this, because for me, Wonder Man is my favorite show of the year. If you haven't seen it yet, please do go watch it. It really is truly an amazing experience. Emotionally, I was so moved by it, and I think Simon Williams is actually a really cool character in the comics as well, who also is very underrated, and they did a great job showcasing some of the elements of that character that really make him dynamic and interesting. They brought that to the show, so there's a lot to love about it, and I hope that more people watch it, and I hope that those of us that are upset by this news keep talking about it, because things will never change if we don't say something, if we don't make it known that we feel that this is disappointing to us and that we would like more stories like Wonder Man and like all of these projects that didn't end up happening. That's all I really have to say about this. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll see you down there. And until next time, friends, you stay nerdy. Bye. And if you'd like to hear more of my thoughts on some of the art that I absolutely adore, then I would highly recommend that you check out this next.